पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Namaste. Welcome to the 13th session on Bhagavad Gita, your source of inspiration by Jayaji. I request Jayaji to give us an overview of the first half of chapter 18.
Thank you. We begin with the invocation.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
As was just announced, chapter 18 is the longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. And so we have split it into two parts to be able to do justice to it. Today we will take the first part of chapter 18 and conclude tomorrow. The 18th chapter is Krishna's final message. It begins with Arjuna asking for precise definitions of the two most important concepts in Vedanta: sannyasa, renunciation, and tyaga, resignation. Often the two are mistaken for each other, but here there is a clear demarcation or difference shown. Krishna quotes the wise sages of the past and clarifies that sannyasa is giving up of desire-driven actions, while tyaga is giving up the fruit of action. Contrary to popular perception, neither sannyas nor tyag implies giving up action. Action continues, giving up the two things that come in the way of excellence in action: desire from the past and anxiety for the fruit which belongs to the future. Desire is necessary to initiate action. Without desire, no action will be undertaken. Similarly, there is always a fruit in mind before acting. However, while executing action, 100% of the mind must be focused on the action. If at this time the mind meanders into the dead past or unborn future, it is not concentrating on the present. Action becomes faulty and ineffective, leading to failure. Krishna then goes on to say that some sages say that all action should be renounced as flawed, while others maintain that acts of yajna, dana, and tapa, sacrifice, charity, and penance, must never be abandoned. These three, yajna, tapa, and dana, form the foundation of human existence, of refinement in a human being. The vast majority of people are laden with desires. They need to perform acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance, yajna, dana, and tapa, to purify themselves. For them, action free from attachment and fruit is the pathway to spiritual evolution. And this includes the vast majority of us. That rare individual who's on the verge of realization and is totally absorbed in meditation needs to let go of the last thought, the mantra itself, which is now an impediment to realization. It prevents him from taking off into that exalted state of enlightenment. He needs to give up all action, all vasanas, the last one being desire for realization. So, this tyaga, giving up the fruit of action, can be of three kinds: sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. We have seen these three gunas in the earlier chapter, chapter 17, and now Krishna presents a deeper analysis of the human personality and categorizes each of the 7 different aspects into sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. And he starts with tyaga. So, abandoning obligatory duty out of delusion is tamasic. And a typical example of this is where, out of ignorance, the lady who's carrying a diamond necklace in one hand and waste paper in the other throws the diamond necklace into the waste bin and keeps the waste paper in the safe. Now, why does she give up? Why does she throw the diamond necklace? Out of ignorance, she doesn't know that she's throwing the diamond necklace. Similarly, many of us give up things not knowing their value. That is tamasic renunciation, tamasic tyag. It is not tyag at all. Then comes false or rajasic tyag, which is giving up action because it is troublesome at that moment, fearing physical discomfort. So, because let's say a tennis player needs to give up needs to put in that hard work and discipline to be able to go to the Wimbledon, to be able to qualify for the Wimbledon, says, I don't want Wimbledon. It's not that he doesn't want. He doesn't want the pain that is associated with going to Wimbledon. So that is Rajasic Tyag. That's false because it comes back when the trouble or the discomfort goes away. True or Sattvic Tyag is performance of obligatory duty because it ought to be done, giving up attachment and fruit. The chapter then analyzes the 5 other distinct aspects of action: the body, the actor, the various instruments, mind, intellect, ego, sense organs, and external instruments, and their respective functions. So, the body is 1, the actor is 2, the various instruments 3, their functions 4, and the 5th is the divine. The divine self remains inactive but enlivens all the other entities and enables them to function. If you identify with Atman and not the individuality, action takes on a divine dimension. Work then becomes worship. Action becomes outstanding, perfect, inspiring, amazing. And such action does not bind you, irrespective of what the action may be, not even the act of killing. Now, the next portion gives a brilliant insight into our personality. The qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas impact on each aspect of our persona. As we've seen earlier, every human being is a combination of these 3. It is the permutations and combinations of the 3 that make for the wide variety of human beings. No being is free from the influence of these 3 gunas, traits. The various facets of our inner working are Number one, knowledge. So before you perform an action, you need to have knowledge of what you are going to do. Then you perform the action. The person performing the action is the actor. Each of these can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. Before performing the action, the intellect needs to come into play to give a sense of direction. The intellect can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. To achieve the result, you need consistency of purpose, dhriti, which again can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. And the end result of action is happiness that you are seeking. Happiness also can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. Now, we all have one or two faults that pull us down. By understanding how the gunas manifest within our personality in the different aspects, we can identify the weak spots and deal with them. Thus, the whole personality then gets a lift. For example, you may have sattvic knowledge, but maybe tamasic inconsistency. You may have the capacity to see the larger picture and understand the oneness in and through the superficial differences, which makes for sattvic knowledge. But you may be indisciplined and inconsistent at work because you haven't applied your intellect in that area. So, with just a little effort in this area, you will be able to knock off the tamas and make a huge difference in your personality. So, let's take a look at sattvic knowledge, verse 20.
सर्वभूतेषु येनैकम् भावमव्ययमीक्षते अविभक्तं विभक्तेषु तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि सात्विकम्.
Know that knowledge as sattvic, by which one sees the one indestructible being in all beings, the undivided in the divided. So, sattvic knowledge is that by which you see Atman in all, the underlying unity in the diversity of beings, the homogeneous principle that binds the heterogeneous variety of living beings. Sattvic knowledge helps you to harmonize with all. See, you can harmonize only when you see oneness. You can then blend with the melody of life's orchestra. So, this is very important because, for instance, when you see waves as nothing but the ocean, and that each individual wave is only nama rupa, it has a name and a form, but essentially it is still the ocean. Then you don't get unnecessarily excited when the wave is born. You are then free from the desire to become bigger and bigger. And when the wave ultimately comes crashing down, you are not in grief because the identification is with the ocean. When the wave is born, there is no difference to the ocean. When it gets bigger, the volume of water in the ocean doesn't increase. And when it comes crashing down, the ocean does not die. So this then lends stability to you. You don't get tossed around by the nama rupa, by the superficial differences that most people are caught up with. You see ornaments, the ordinary person gets carried away by the ornaments, the shape, the size, the design, so on and so forth. But a goldsmith is rooted in whether it is 24 karat gold, 18 karat gold. That's all that matters to him. So he has a stability, whereas you and I get tossed up and down. Similarly, A potter sees pots as nothing but clay. His attention is on the quality of the clay, the mud, not on the shapes and sizes and designs of the pots. So, how to gain this maturity? This is maturity in a human being. When you identify with the body, when your attention is on your body, you see maximum differences and plurality because you see everybody as different, alag, alag. And that causes a lot of stress because then you're competing with people. Everyone is an opponent. Everyone is an enemy. Identify with the mind, and immediately you feel one with the family members. Even if you don't do well and a family member, a sibling, or a child does well, you revel in that. You celebrate the achievements of your child as if it were your own because you feel one with the child. Rise to the intellectual level, and you can celebrate even the victory of an opponent as if it were yours because you're dedicated to, let's say, the sport, or you're dedicated to the business, you're dedicated to that particular field, music, let's say. So when a true musician sees another musician do better than him, he admires it. He feels one with the musician because he feels one with music. But if you say that no, only I must get name, fame, etc., then every other musician becomes a competitor. Next, understand that the differences are because of gunas, vasanas. As the third chapter says, guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. You understand that every creature, every human being behaves according to his or her vasanas. And that you can't help, you can't stop. Just as an animal lover loves all animals irrespective of their nature and risks his life to protect a leopard, a lion, tiger, cobra as much as a pup or a kitten. A human being with this vision of oneness, with sattvic knowledge, sees a criminal as helplessly driven by his own vasanas, a greedy person as being a victim of his own vasanas. An angry person is unfortunately victimized by his own vasanas. But you go beyond the vasanas and we are all one. That power which enables the criminal to do what he's doing, an angry person from expressing his angry person to express his anger, and you and me to function is the same. So he doesn't get carried away. All agitations come because of this sense of otherness. The moment you escalate to a higher level, you cultivate the finer things of life, you become a more refined person, then all this doesn't disturb you. So it's not just spiritual value. As you go up the ladder spiritually, you generally become a more refined person. The kind of music you listen to becomes more refined, more classical. The kind of books you read changes quality. You become more service minded. There's a beautiful poem called The Nightingale and the Glowworm, where the nightingale has sung all night long and is looking for food, is hungry. It spots a glowworm shining in the dark and is about to pounce on it and eat it. When the glowworm sees what's about to happen and quickly goes out of reach, the glowworm then addresses the nightingale and says, "Did you admire my lamp as much as I your minstrelsy? If only you had admired my light as much as I admire your singing, you would abhor to do me wrong as much as I to spoil your song. Then you will not want to do me harm. For 'twas the self same power divine taught you to sing and me to shine, that you with music and I with light might beautify and cheer the night." So this small poem, which is taught to children actually, becomes the source of knowledge for us. And what sattvic knowledge can do is what the glowworm teaches the nightingale, because the nightingale then lets go of the glowworm. Now, when you have sattvic knowledge, you will perform sattvic action. Let's see what that is in verse 23.
नियतं सङ्गरहितम् अरागद्वेषतः कृतम् अफलप्रेप्सुना कर्म यत्तत् सात्विकमुच्यते.
That action is called sattvic, which is obligatory. Niyatam. Sangarahitam, performed without attachment. Aragadvesha, free from love and hate. And aphala prepsuda, by one not desirous of its fruit. So first of all, sattvic action is obligatory action. Obligatory niyatam karma. Niyatam karma consists of two aspects. One is nitya karma, your regular routine duties which everybody knows, and naimittika karma, extraordinary special duties which arise because of a unique situation. Like nowadays, you know what your nitya karma is. You have to do certain things, you have to go to work, you have to look after your family, so on and so forth. But we all have naimittika karma, special duty which has arisen because of the COVID crisis. We need to reach out to people. And this very few people are doing. So if every person who's listening to this understands that my spiritual growth depends on how much service I do in this exceptional, special case of the COVID crisis, then we will overcome the crisis together much faster. So, Niyatam karma is Nitya karma and Naimittika karma. Both duties we don't perform. What comes in the way? Desire, likes and dislikes. Now, such a person, this sattvic action is rare because most of us have this pressure of likes and dislikes within us. Likes and dislikes you're born with, but during your lifetime, you cultivate more. And the environment promotes it. So your parents, people around you say you like it, have it, don't like it, need not have. So likes and dislikes get stronger, then you have new experiences, some of which you like, some of which you don't like. So these likes and dislikes then become a powerful motor that then drives you to activity. Through unintelligent, indifferent lifestyles, we accumulate distinct, strong likes and dislikes. For what? Sensual enjoyments, emotional thrills, intellectual delights. These develop into a vega, it develops momentum, power, force, which take you away from obligatory duty. Thus, you become attached to action because you've got a stake in it. Likes and dislikes permeate all your actions. And they then develop into desire for the fruit because you're then dependent on the fruit of action. So, all these likes and dislikes collect in your mind and intellect, your subtle body, which then go into the future as in the material world as action. Any society, any individual, any country that is based on the foundation of likes and dislikes prospers, is harmonious. Within a family also. See, if you're driven by entitlement, like this is my right, then everyone is claiming the same thing. Everyone is claiming more than his due. So there is friction, there is conflict, there is devastation and destruction. But in the same family, if each one is focused only on what is my duty, what is my kartavya, then there is peace because each one has distinct obligations. The wife has her obligation, the husband has his obligation, children have their obligations, everybody is harmonious. But unfortunately, nowadays, it is entitlement that rules the band. Even in companies, organizations, everyone is claiming things, rights, rather than doing their duties. And of course, in the country. So, this is the fundamental requirement for peace and harmony. The world will never gain peace or harmony as long as we are riding on desire, likes and dislikes, rights, and entitlements. This needs to change. This message of sattvic action has to be first lived by us, and then we become role models and spread this knowledge to others. It's badly needed. The entire personality chart, actually. Now, when you perform sattvic action, you become the actor. What kind of actor are you? Let's take a look at Sattvic Actor, verse 26.
मुक्तसङ्गो नहं वादी धृत्युत्साहसमन्वितः सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योर्निर्विकारः कर्ता सात्विक उच्यते.
That actor is called Sattvic, who is free from attachment, Mukta Sangha, not egoistic, endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, and unaffected by success or failure. So, the first trait of a Sattvic actor is Mukta Sangha, free from attachment. Attachment is the mental bondage which arises from unintelligent preferential relationships. Attachment is nothing but love plus selfishness. So, to the extent you have desire and ego, you are selfish. This selfishness permeates everything you do, including relationships. And so, when you form relationships with people, there is love, yes, but that love is polluted by selfishness, and that becomes attachment. So, why are you attached? Because you're dependent. The starting point is wrong. Starting point is, let's say, you say, I am not content being single, so I need a partner, I need to get married. The starting point is wrong because you are then dependent on the other person. Why are you dependent? Because you lack the self-sufficiency. You're not independent. So when you form a relationship, the love is tagged with expectations, demands that you make on a person, and all these are unreasonable expectations because it has no connection with the nature of the person. There is no assessment made of what kind of person am I getting married to, what is his or her nature, what can I reasonably expect from the person. There is no analysis. So you say you have some fanciful notions of marriage and you project these expectations on the other person, which are not forthcoming. It's like expecting a dog not to bark. Impossible. So you're doomed from the beginning. And then when these expectations and demands are not met with, you get frustrated, you get angry, there is bitterness, there is conflict, and ultimate breakup. Then you say, oh, it's because of COVID that I divorced my husband or wife. That's ridiculous. No external force can make you divorce except your foolishness. Swami Ramatirtha, more than 100 years ago, has warned us against attachment. The Bhagavad Gita says it, but Swami Ramatirtha said it explicitly in one lecture. He said, beware of attachment. There's two things happen with attachment. Number one, the interaction itself becomes painful, conflict ridden. And number two, ultimately you lose the object of attachment. This happens even with an inert object and with living beings, of course. So, in the beginning, how do you know you're attached? You feel miserable when the person is not there or not catering to you. And you feel relatively happy when the person is there, catering to you. You miss the person. That's the first sign. That's a wake up call. You should ask yourself, why is it like that? If you're not attached, you enjoy the person's presence completely, fully. And when the person is not there, you enjoy your solitude. You're not riding on somebody else's presence. Same thing with even objects. You get attached to a car, you're miserable. Every pothole the car hits gives you a heart attack, especially if it's a luxury car, expensive car. The driver makes the slightest mistake, you get angry. Then you get attached to actions. There are people who are terribly attached to golf or football. Now, if it rains and you can't go out and play, you get into a bad mood. Attachment is the opposite of love. So, where there is attachment, there is no love. Attachment suffocates you and you suffer constantly. So, a mother who is attached to the child, if the child is ill, of course she suffers. If the child is healthy, there is fear that, oh, what if the child falls? What if the child falls in school? Ridiculous fears. Yet you won't let go of it. You know, it's like the story of a Swami in the Himalayas, in his cave. He used to sit in meditation and the monkeys used to come and disturb him. And he got very annoyed with them. So he thought of an idea. He got a pitcher, a glass pitcher, which had a round bottom and a narrow mouth, and put peanuts in it. They're called monkey nuts because monkeys like them. Now the pitcher was such that the monkey's hand would go in empty, but when the monkey grabbed the peanuts, it wouldn't come out. And the jar was heavy. So the monkey couldn't lift it and go. So once he was in meditation, the monkey came and saw the peanuts, put his hand in, grabbed a whole lot of them. And the sage got up in a very relaxed manner. He had kept a stick there and beat the monkey. One whack, and the monkey dropped a few peanuts, but still held on to the others. One more whack, few more peanuts dropped. And the third whack was so heavy and so painful that the monkey let go of all the peanuts, brought a hand out, and ran away. So we are like that. We get attached, we cling. It's called clinging attachment. We don't let go. We suffocate the person so much that the person, even though the person may love you, is looking for an opportunity to get away from you. So that is why, see, signs come up. Like the husband sometimes tells the wife, it's been a long time since you went to your mother's home now. What does that mean? Get out of my life. Give me some relief. The children tell the parents, don't you want to go on a vacation by yourself? Are there any parties that you can go to? Means the child is saying, get off my back. But even these signs you don't pick up. Until eventually there is a breakup. Nowadays in America, I read an article recently, children completely cutting off from their parents. No communication whatsoever. They say, I don't want you. in my life. All this is because of extreme attachment. So watch out for this. Then anahambadi, no ego, no I am the doer attitude. You understand your place in the scheme of things. You are one player in the orchestra of life. And for the whole totality to function, so many people are contributing. In the scheme of things, your existence is minimal, it's infinitesimal. It doesn't matter whether you're alive or not. Yet, because you are alive, you do what little you can do. Dhriti, you're full of. Now, anahambadi doesn't mean that you do things as if they were drudgery. You're full of dhriti and utsaha. Dhriti, consistency and enthusiasm. You're cheerful, you're energetic, you're vibrant. All this comes from fixing a higher ideal. And you're unaffected by success or failure because you have already found fulfillment in the performance of the action. What more can you ask? What is this fulfillment? Just the state of happiness in performing your obligation. And number two, you evolve spiritually because your vasanas drop. And incidentally, success will be the result. But you're not affected by it. Because at any time failure may come, it's dependent on so many factors beyond your control. So, success is the future result, cause is the present action. Focus on what you have control over, focus on the present, the future will be assured to you. Now, in order to perform sattvic action or become a sattvic actor, you need an intellect. What kind of intellect do you have? Sattvic intellect is described in verse 30.
प्रवृत्तिं च निवृत्तिं च कार्याकार्ये भयाभये बन्धं मोक्षं च या वेत्ति बुद्धिः सा पार्थ सात्विकी.
O Partha, that intellect is sattvic, which knows activity and abstinence, what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation, pravritti and nivritti, action and renunciation. So, you know what you ought to do, means you know which field you must invest your energies in, and that field is the field of swadharma, and you know what to abstain from, paradharma activities, those which are not in line with your swadharma. Swadharma means your passion, your talent, that special gift that you were born with, your predominant vasana in a particular field. Like some people are born to be musicians, others are born to be sports persons, some others are born with business tendencies, some others are artists. So, what is your swadharma? What were you born to do? You must identify that. Most of us choose swadharma, choose fields or careers based on where you will make money. Now, the common sense is how can you make money in a field that is alien to your nature? Granted that each one has levels. One person is capable of going to the very top, another person is capable of going somewhere in between. It's like cricket. A person like Tendulkar is blazed forth to the test level. Another person may not have that talent, may not have that level of talent, but may still be a cricketer, play a Ranji Trophy or whatever. But cricket is still the swadharma. So then comes karya and akarya. What ought to be done, what ought not to be done. Acts of commission and omission. After selecting your swadharma and you choose the right direction, You should be driven by obligatory duty, not likes and dislikes, not desire. So the use of the intellect is important to decide all of this. Then bhaya and abhaya, fear and fearlessness. We indulge in the world, in sense objects, and we are not fearless of, we don't fear that. The consequences of unintelligent indulgence in the world. And we fear spirituality. The sattvic intellect is cautious when it comes to indulging in the world, because and acquiring wealth without the backing of spirituality. As Adi Shankaracharya said in his composition Bhajagovindam, artham anartham, wealth is calamitous. Bhavaya nityam, reflect over this constantly. Nasti tata sukhaleshaya satyam. There is no sukham, there is no happiness in it. This is the truth. But we don't understand that. So we rush headlong into wealth. And you see what's happening. Wealth becomes your undoing. What a tragedy. All the effort, all the hard work put in to acquire this wealth. And this wealth destroys you. It's not the wealth that destroys you. It is your wrong attitude towards wealth, wrong relationship with wealth. And this happens because of lack of spiritual values. Then bandham and moksha. What is bondage? What is liberation? You know clearly. Attachment to body, mind, and intellect creates bondage. And then you're lost in perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. And you're going to go rushing out into the world and get caught up and entangled there. And miss the glory and beauty of the grandeur of liberation, which is detachment from the world. Liberation is not that you walk away from the world. Liberation is where you are in the world, you're interacting with the world, you're enjoying the world, but you're not dependent. Now, one very important quality that we need to have is consistency. What kind of consistency do you have? Sattvic dhriti is described in verse 33.
धृत्या यया धारयते मनः प्राणेन्द्रियक्रियाः योगेनाव्यभिचारिण्या धृतिः सा पार्थ सात्विकी.
O Partha, that firmness is sattvic, by which the functions of the mind, pranas, and senses are kept steadfast through yoga. Yoga, the origin of yoga is to join, union with Atman. You have disconnected from Atman, you have separated from Atman by straying into the avenues of sense indulgence, emotional craving, and intellectual curiosity. And as a result, you're not even aware of anything beyond. A human being is made of spirit and matter. And in this short sojourn of life, you are meant to find the self. That is the very purpose of your existence, to reunite with yourself. And for that, you have the best environment, you have the best opportunities to get there. But you waste your time and you're doing everything else except that. In the relative sense, you don't know who your benefactors are and who your malefactors are. So you reject your benefactors and court malefactors. But now, for all this, consistency is of the essence, because the problem is that you have, by your unintelligent thinking, got attached to body, mind, and intellect. constant thinking of the body, I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect, has resulted in your becoming the body, mind, and intellect. The law is as you think, so you become. So now to reverse this, you have to think of Atman with some level of consistency. Now, some of us fix the goal, some of us are inspired by it, but there is no discipline to pursue it till the very end. And then you get distracted by something or the other, you get tempted by something else. So that doesn't help. So, steadfastness, continuance, perseverance, persistence, and constant application, with which one restrains all other activities and focuses only on this. So, whatever you do, you must first think, is this going to take me one step closer to realization? If so, do it by all means. Whatever it is, whether it's a sense enjoyment or an emotional relationship or an intellectual uh, entertainment. But if it's going to take you away in the opposite direction, then and only then restrain yourself. So you don't get frustrated. At the same time, you're making progress. So every breath you take, every thought that flits through your intellect, every desire in the mind, every action that you perform is oblated to that goal. And if you can't fix the goal of realization, fix a higher goal which is lower than realization but still beyond your selfish interests. So it is not external action that matters, it is your inner alignment, the focus that matters. And this consistency is fantastic. Initially, it appears difficult, but as you go along, the mind also cooperates with the intellect. The mind likes what the intellect thinks is right for you to do, and the intellect supports what the mind likes. So there is no inner conflict between what you like to do and what the intellect thinks is right to do. Now, the end of all human pursuit is happiness. What kind of happiness are you pursuing? Verse 37 tells us what sattvic or true happiness is.
यत्तदग्रे विषमिव परिणामे मृतोपमम् तत्सुखं सात्विकं प्रोक्तम् आत्मबुद्धिप्रसादजम्.
That happiness is sattvic, born of the purity of one's intellect, which is like poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. So this sattvic happiness is obtained by pursuit of the higher, pursuit of Atman, pursuit of God. It appears like poison in the beginning because the mind and the senses are dragging you towards the world. So there has to be a certain abstinence from the world to focus on higher things, and that gives you pain. So what happens is you have not yet experienced the joy of the higher, but you are experiencing the withdrawal symptoms. So it appears poisonous, like it's not very pleasant. As the mind turns towards the higher, as the mind gains the joys of the higher, like even if it's not spiritual pursuit, it is classical music or sport. Initially, it's painful because you can't enjoy what you were enjoying earlier. There is an element of abstinence and hard work because you have to learn the basics, which is painful. But as you pick it up, it's such a pleasure. Just the exertion, just the effort gives so much pleasure that the pain goes into insignificance. So the mind then becomes relatively calm, the intellect develops clarity, you understand the limitations of the material world, you are no longer tempted by it, and then you're okay. But initially, when the intellect doesn't allow you to indulge in the world, then it appears poisonous. So, what you need to do is to carefully balance the two. Allow just enough sense contact and engagement with the world so that the mind is kept quiet, the mind is satisfied to a certain extent, and put in all your efforts to move up. Very soon, you experience the happiness of the higher, then you cruise for a while till you come to the next leap that you have to take. So, the practice of the spiritual discipline itself becomes a pleasure later. Like waking up at early morning, waking up at 4 in the morning, initially is so painful, you're sleepy and tired. But as you do it and as you use this sattvic time early in the morning to focus on these wonderful ideas, inspiring ideas, then you will not give it up. On an odd day when you are unable to wake up in the morning, you feel as if something is missing. Similarly, with exercise or healthy food, unfortunately, in the world, anything that is good for you, really good for you, is distasteful. And that which is painful in the beginning, and that which gives you instant pleasure leads to pain in the end. Why it is so, we don't know. But that it is so, we must understand. Like junk food. You don't need to teach a child the pleasures of junk food, it naturally takes to it. Chips, fried food, bhajiyas, so on and so forth. You don't need to teach a child the pleasures of it. But eat vegetables, eat healthy food, they're boring. Don't want it. Same thing with music. Classical music, you play, and everyone around you will say, "Oh, what boring music you've played." And then you play all these peppy pop numbers or Bollywood numbers, and everybody takes to it. Why it is so, we don't know. But it is so. It's amazing how you see that. Similarly, exercising every day is painful. Even if you exercise every day, first thing in the morning, your mind resists it. But you must understand, for a few seconds of pain, you cannot give up a lifetime of happiness. Same thing in relationships. To be nasty to someone just because you feel like it is easy. It gives you pleasure at that moment, but it will lead to a very lonely existence in future. So watch out for instant pleasure. It doesn't mean that you should not have instant pleasure. It simply means your intellect must be alert to invest in that which truly gives happiness, sattvic happiness. So with this, we come to the end of today's session, and tomorrow we will complete the second part of chapter 18. Thank you.
Om Shanti Shanti.